Hey ladies, welcome back to my channel. So I know it's been a while since I've done a voiceover on my tutorials, and I've kind of just been bouncing back and forth between doing voiceovers on the more in-depth sets and just doing a visual tutorial when it comes to like the more basic sets. If you guys could leave me some feedback down below and let me know if you all would prefer to keep it that way, if you want voiceovers on every tutorial, if you don't want voiceovers, just so I can kind of figure out what content and what way you guys like best, of watching my videos and tutorials. So definitely let me know so I can give you guys what you want. I just been kind of trying to figure that out. So I think the best way to figure that out would be to get feedback from you all, the people watching. So we are going to go ahead and get into the tutorial. As you can tell by the caption of the video, we are doing water nails today. So this client is going on a cruise, which is why we're doing this design. And as you can see, I started off by pushing her cuticles back. I then took my cuticle drill bit and went around the cuticle area to just expose the entire nail. And now I'm taking my 180 sanding band and I am going around the entire nail and around the cuticle area again, just to remove all of the natural shine from the nails. That's important because the natural shine and the natural oils that our nails produce do cause the nails to lift and prevents the acrylic from adhering properly. So now I'm taking the same sanding band and I'm just blending the nail tips in with the natural nail. This is another step that helps prevent lifting and it helps retention. And so now I'm going in with my Mia Secret dehydrator, and this is just another step to get rid of those natural oils. As you can see, that part, the natural oils, being off of the nail is super, super important. Now, before I go on with the next and final step of the prep phase, since this is a water set, part of that is going to be like an ombre. So we are taking this Macart jelly polish that I got on Amazon, and we're going to go ahead and just paint one layer of this on the nail tips. This is going to be the first step in doing the water design. We are going to do this before finishing the prep, before putting on any acrylic, and once we get to the end, you will see why. But she wants to do an ombre look, and because of the way that the bubbles need to kind of look for the water design, I feel like this is the best and easiest way to achieve the look. So once you see the finished results, you'll see why we're doing it this way, and it does save so much time and effort. And you do want to make sure that, again, this is a gel polish, so you want to make sure that you're wiping the sides of the nails before placing it under the dryer. So now that we have this first layer down, we are going to go ahead and cure it. So now the next step is to use a milky white polish, and we're going to just go over the blue. You don't want to apply it too thick and you don't want it to be too thin, so I just literally took clear top coat and put 1 drop of white gel polish and mixed it, so it made like this milky white. As you can see, I'm still kind of mixing it as I'm going over on my lid, but the reason why you want to make sure that you want to apply it, you obviously want to apply it, you don't want to apply it too thin, because then you won't be able to see the milky whiteness in it. But you don't want to apply it too thick because we are going to leave this wet to do the next step. So now that we have that done, I am taking regular clear top coat and a dotting tool. And I am just literally dipping it in the dotting tool and going around the nail and placing it on the nail and just literally creating dots. Now this does bloom, so you do want to move quick. I tried to do all 4 fingers at once, and I do not recommend that because by the time I got to the 4th finger, honestly, I think it was like the 3rd finger, the pinky and the ring finger kind of started to blend together, and it really lost like the bubble effect. So I definitely recommend probably just working maybe 2 fingers at a time, depending on how fast you can move, but you don't want to rush it, obviously. But as you can see, it's starting to bloom out, and you do want it to make sure that you're keeping the look of the bubble, like underwaterness. So if that doesn't, sound too confusing, hopefully you guys get what I mean. But I wanted to show like another view here. I just go in with that milky white polish again, and you can use blooming gel as well. You don't have to use top coat. I just feel like the top coat was a little bit easier to work with because it wasn't as thick as like blooming gel. And I do feel like although the top coat kind of like bloomed fast, it was nowhere near as fast as blooming gel. So I recommend the gel top coat, but blooming gel does work just fine, whatever you have. But just make sure that you are doing this before you cure the white. You do not want to cure the white. The white needs to be wet still. Then you do this step and then you cure. Make sure to wipe the sides as well. And then anytime I ever do a ombre that includes anything with any sort of like gel polish, I always top coat after I completely have like all the tips painted, everything done before I move on to the acrylic. I do paint, not paint, oh my goodness. I do top coat that, and I just feel like it helps apply, it helps the ombre apply way better. Or even if I'm not doing ombre, just acrylic over top of it in general, once you top coat it before doing that, it does help it apply better. That's just my opinion. Some people probably cap it in clear acrylic and then do whatever they're doing, but I just feel like top coat does the job. So yeah, this is the final step of prep. This is Mia's Secret primer, and oh, I'm sorry, not primer, I think it's called Extra Bond, but whatever, it's the same scent. And I do 2 coats of that. I don't show that, but I always do 2 layers. That's optional. I just feel like it is what works best for me. And the important part in that is that is what helps the acrylic adhere to the nail. So now we're going to go ahead and start this ombre. So I'm just going to take 1 bead and place it right underneath the cuticle area, because since we are going to be encapsulating, I don't need to use too much of this acrylic. So as you can see, I placed it right above, and I used the tip of my brush to push it up slightly, and then I'm going to use the body of my brush to blend it downwards. Again, since there is a top coat, sometimes as you're blending it, you might feel like you need to blend it a little bit more than usual, and that is okay because it's not really blending into anything. It's blending on a top coat rather than in with another acrylic. So just keep that in mind. If you feel like you need to go back and add more acrylic, definitely do that. It's not like a 1 bead rule. I just always try to use 1 bead when I am going to be doing encapsulation, because you have to remember that the encapsulating will make the nail a little bit thicker if you already have too much acrylic, before that. So as you can see, I'm kind of using just enough to build up a proper apex. But of course, since the bottom of the nail where the polish is does not have any acrylic over top, I have to encapsulate it. If that wasn't the case, I wouldn't really need to encapsulate it. But obviously, if I use the drill over top of that polish, it's not going to keep that look. So that is why I'm saying to kind of go a little bit light when you do the ombreing, because you do have to add even more acrylic on top. And in the end, all you're going to have to do is file that off if you make it too thick. So you might as well work smarter, not harder, and only use what you need to use right now. That way, when you do get to the filing part, all you have to do is kind of clean it up, fix your shape, and you're good to go. So as you can see, I did come back to the pinky because I wanted to add just a little bit more. I felt like it kind of, like the nude area kind of looked a little too thin, or like translucent kind of, if you get what I'm saying, if you were looking at that. So I just wanted to add just a little bit more, not too much to make the nail super fat or thick, but just enough to give it more color. And that's kind of what I did here as well. As you can see, I was not scared to go back and add more acrylic. So I would encourage you all to do the same thing, because sometimes people get discouraged and they feel like, well, I already did 1 bead, like that's it, that's all it can do. And no, throughout the entirety of the whole set, you always want to make sure that you're checking your work and looking back and seeing, okay, does that still look okay? Is there anything that I need to fix? Because one thing I've learned from doing nails for so long is that sometimes you'll do something and be like, yeah, that looks great, and then you just move on and you never really go back to check. But I've learned that sometimes I do that and I look back and I'm like, oh, I was looking at that for so long, so it just kind of looked perfect to me. But now that I took a minute to look away, focus on something else, and now look back at it, I see that I need to, fix this or correct this, etc. So that's what I did with these 2 nails. I feel like I needed to add a little bit more, blend a little bit more, and that's what I did. And now I'm happy with that outcome. So I think going forward, I kind of did the two bead with every nail just to be safe. I guess technically you could just do one bigger bead. I don't know. Anytime I do any sets or work with any acrylic, I always like to work with not necessarily small beads, but I like to work smaller. I don't like to just, use one big bead or multiple big beads. I feel like that's when you have to do more manipulating, more work, more, you know, all of that, everything in that nature. I feel like it's just better to work with like medium sized beads. You can work your way up, and that way, if you feel like you need to add more, then you're able to do that easily rather than have too much and now you have to take away, um, most of your product at the end. So, um, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and finish ombreing this. It's pretty simple. Most of this design actually is from the beginning when we did like the water bubbles and everything. And in this specific set, she did want to add a few more things to her nails for like the aesthetic of the cruise. So we did end up adding some things at the end, but most of the design happened in the beginning. So I'm just going to finish blending and I'll bring that here before we go on to the encapsulating. I do want to just throw in a few tips that when you're doing this, make sure, as you can see, I am frequently wiping my brush on my towels, making sure to keep my brush nice and clean because it is so easy to clog your brush, especially when working with like an ombre or something of that sort. So, just anytime you're doing any acrylic application, you want to make sure that your brush is nice and clean. And then as you can see, since we are working very close with the cuticle area, I am making sure to keep the skin around that area nice and clean, nice and free of all acrylic. If you do happen to get acrylic on the skin, you want to make sure that you go ahead and clean that up right away rather than wait until it is now dry, because if you get any product on the skin, it does cause lifting for sure. Y'all, I haven't done a voiceover in so long, so you have to bear with me. I'm still getting back into the hang of things and just, yeah. So, you do want to make sure that you're keeping the cuticle area as well as like all the skin around the nail free of all acrylics. You don't want any lifting, and you can easily do that, like I said, by just taking your brush and wiping around the client's cuticle area and the skin. And as you can see, when I place the beads near the cuticle, I'm not placing them right at the cuticle. Sometimes I'm placing them right below, and I'll use my tip of my brush to, push it up slightly, and then the body of my brush to blend it. Sometimes I don't have to push it up. I just placed it, you know, still below the cuticle, but right at a good spot to where all I have to do is go ahead and start to pat it down. Because when you do feather your acrylic, as you can see, this was a perfect example. As you feather your acrylic down, pat it, whatever you want to, whatever term you want to use, as you apply your acrylic, I guess we can say, it does move up slightly. So that is why I say place it right underneath the cuticle, because as you, do your application, as you feather it down, as you blend it, pat it, whatever, it will push up and, be right in the spot that it is supposed to be. So just keep that in mind. That is why people always say don't place it on the cuticle, because once you start to do that, now it's going to get on the cuticle, and that's going to cause flooding, which is lifting, which will cause lifting black. Huh. Yeah, waiting 3 months to do a voiceover as well as doing a voiceover in the middle of the night is 0 out of 10. Highly do not recommend. So y'all gotta bear with me. So now, yeah, I'm just encapsulating all of them. As you can see, I'm only using one bead, and I'm placing that right near the cuticle area and going ahead and feathering that down. And that is just protecting the polish, the design that we did in the beginning. That's just protecting that. That way, when I do go in with my file and my e-file, I don't take any of that off and mess up the design. But the one bead is also just enough to go ahead and build up that nice apex and have a nice foundation. As you can see, looking from the side view, the nails were already okay without the encapsulation, But because we have that design, that is why we're going to do that, to protect that. So it's still a win-win. We're keeping it thin enough to have a good foundation and a good apex, but enough to where we're protecting that design. So again, making sure that I'm wiping around my client's cuticle area and also along the sides of the nails and the free edge. That way I keep my shape and I don't have much filing to do in this step. So now I'm just taking my 80 grit file and I'm going against the sides of the nails, keeping the file straight up against the side of the nail. And I'm just filing at a 90-degree angle straight up and down. This is going to make sure that your nails are super nice and crisp. I'm doing the same step on the free edge, just filing straight up and down. You do want to make sure, as you can see, starting off, I am making sure to get the file underneath the sides of the nail. And that is very, very important because a lot of people don't stop to take a minute to do that, and that does really take away from the set when you have like rigid edges on the sides of your nails. So sometimes, especially if you're someone like me, like I said just a few minutes ago, I like to make sure that I'm taking my brush and patting it against the sides of the nails as well as the free edge to keep that shape, but that can sometimes cause acrylic to sneak underneath. And if you're somebody that has to use a file in the beginning, if once you add the acrylic, it can definitely change the sides of the nails to where you have to go back in and file them. So moral of the story is you do just want to make sure that you file the undersides of the nails to just get them nice and crisp and clean, because applying acrylic and doing a design, filing, all of those things can affect the size of the nail. So now this is being, the final, one of the final steps. You want to make sure that you're going into the end of the application. Well, not application, but you're going into the end of the set, designs, whatever, with a nice clean base. And so that is very important, because if you leave them sidewalls looking crazy, you will definitely be able to tell once your client's walking out. So again, you just want to make sure that you are placing the file straight up against the sides of the nails, 90-degree angle straight up and down. Again, make sure to keep that file flat up against the nail. You don't want to have it angled because that can cause the file to dig into your client's skin, which is such a terrible feeling. It is so uncomfortable. As you can see, I'm also making sure to pull my client's skin back. So when you're using a file, especially one this sharp, you do just want to keep that in mind. Now this right here is totally optional. You can just take your e-file and file the entire nail as well as the cuticle area. Me personally, I like to do this. I feel like it just results in a smoother base. I feel like the nails just come out more smooth, more clean, more sharp. I feel like my designs apply better. Again, it's totally optional. You don't have to do this, but I just do it. I just take the other side of my file and I just run it up against the entire nail, except, emphasis on except, for the cuticle area. I do not get close to the skin or the cuticle area by any means when doing this step. So make sure that you're careful with that, because it's really easy to nick your client or go back and forth a few times as quick as you're doing it. So I just like to take from like the apex down and just really go ahead and file the entire nail. Super brief. This is a very quick step, but it just makes a big difference for me. And so once we get here to the e-file part, I just make sure to clean up the sides if needed, as well as the free edge. And now, as you can see, I'm just going ahead and sealing the cuticle area. That is such an important thing, you guys. You want to make sure that you're doing that, because this is what will help prevent lifting. So, and now I'm just taking the e-file and just really working on the cuticle area. Since we didn't do that with the file, you might see me run across the entire nail just briefly, and that is just because I feel like I want to smooth it out just a little bit more, which there's no harm in that. Now, normally, after doing the step that you just seen, I usually only take the e-file and just do the cuticle area. I just seal it, make sure that it's nice and flush, and move on. I do any sidewall work or free edge work if needed, and yeah, I just move on. I usually don't file the entire nail, but like I said, since we did encapsulate, I am just going the extra mile to make sure that it is absolutely smooth and everything is even. But you do, like I said, want to make sure that you are going from one side to the other when it comes to sealing the cuticle, because this is a really important step. And you want to remember that the goal here is not to take off any acrylic. You're just simply smoothing everything out and making sure that there are no lumps or bumps, making sure that everything is nice and even and ready for the design process. But yeah, the goal here is not to take off any acrylic. If you need to, then this is when you want to do it. But that is why during the application process, I just say be mindful of, the amount of product that you're using. That way, when you get to this step, it is as easy as sealing the cuticle, running it across the nail, for a split second, literally, and moving on to the next finger. That will save you so much time if you're going into this step with clean work. You don't have to spend so much time filing it down. And in the end, like I said, all that's going to do is, make you, in the long run, you just wasted so much product because you piled it onto the nail just to file it completely off. So now you wasted product and you wasted time. So just be mindful. Of course, if you're somebody that is just beginning, don't be too hard on yourself, because y'all would not believe how much product I used to waste. Lord, y'all would not believe me. Y'all would not understand. Y'all do not understand how much product I used to waste and how long I used to have my client in my chair. Now, unless we're doing like a really crazy exquisite set, I can usually do any set within an hour and 30 minutes or less. But if we're doing like, extra long or something that has a lot of detail or bling, whatever, then it usually takes me at most 2 hours, nothing more, absolutely nothing more. But the point is, don't be too hard on yourself. Just be mindful and learn you and the way that you work best. And once you learn that, then you'll be able to get the feel of, how you work, and you'll be able to know what you can cut out and what you can do differently to speed the process up just a little bit. And in the long run, quicker sets that are still, of course, you want to make sure everything is still good quality and that your clients are getting what they deserve, what they're paying for. But quicker sets result in either shorter days or you having more time to take more clients. So now that we have everything done, this is one of the easiest steps out of the whole entire process. I'm just taking my buffer, which you can find a large pack of these on Amazon for pretty cheap. And I'm just making sure to buff the entire nail as well as the undersides with my little buffer. And then I flip it over and do the other nail, or the other hand with the other side. And then I don't film this part, I never do, but I lather cuticle oil on the cuticles and underneath the nails as well, like the skin area, and I have my clients wash. So this is when we started to do the design, I guess. It was super, super simple, believe it or not. But these things that I ordered were supposed to be stickers. And I did not find out until literally this moment that they were water slides, which are super easy to work with, you guys. Do not get intimidated by these. I used to, and they're not hard to work with. I do always recommend reading the instructions just because every company might make theirs a little bit differently. But in general, it's usually the same process. So for here, I got all of this off Amazon, by the way. I used warm water because that's what this brand said to use. And I cut out the water slides that we're going to use. So this was the first one, a nice turtle, and I just dipped it into the water and held it in there for about 10 to 20 seconds. That's what the instructions said. Granted, I have done that before, and sometimes the time that they recommend is a little bit too long, and then it'll start to crumble up and just become a mess. So I held it in for about 10 seconds, probably a little less, honestly, and I just kind of pulled it up and would play with it a little bit. I did this with all of them, by the way. And I just kind of played with it to see when it was ready. And as soon as it was starting to slide off, I went ahead, and you just want to carefully, emphasis on the carefully, slide it off with, one of your fingers. Look at my big head, y'all. Sorry, I had to make sure my girl was getting exactly what she needed to get. We had to place it properly. So anyways, yeah, after you dip it in and it's starting to slide off, you literally just slide it off with your finger. And I use tweezers to place it. You do want to make sure that you're doing this quickly but carefully, because you don't want to rip any sticker and you don't want it to lay and start to scrunch and bubble. That is why I said a lot of people get intimidated by these, but please do not. It sounds like it is just too stressful. Doing it is way more smooth. But so as you can see here, we're just figuring out where to place it. Now, the reason why I said you kind of want to do it a little bit quickly is because as the sticker becomes, well, this water slide, as it dries, it doesn't adhere to the nail as well as it should. To fix that, you just want to dip it back in the water quickly, dry it off just a little bit, and then place it. But as it dries, it does not adhere as well as it should. So, but we didn't know, where we wanted to place what. So we were kind of like figuring out the mapping of things as we were going, which was causing the slides to dry a little bit quicker than what we wanted, but that's fine. So it's really simple, y'all. We just picked out the ones she wanted. Like I said, dipped them in, slid them off, placed them on the nail, and then they do dry. And you'll be able to tell when you place them, you'll see like the outline of the slide, and it kind of just looks like a plastic sticker. But once it dries, that kind of blends in and goes away. And of course, you do have to top coat these, but these are super fun to work with. And I could be wrong, but I personally feel like, at least on Amazon, they have more, like a wider variety of water slides than they do stickers. I don't know if they're easier to make, if they're more cost efficient for them to make. I'm not sure. But I feel like water slides just usually come in a more wider variety. But so I went ahead and finished that. We just added some bubbles, and now these are actual stickers. So these were super easy to use, but you do want to make sure that when applying stickers, although they do apply pretty easily, sometimes you have some stickers that you'll press on and they kind of just find their way back up. You do want to make sure that everything, is nice and on the nail before top coating it, because if not, then when you put the top coat on, if it does start to seep back up while it's drying, you'll definitely see that, after you dry it. So here again, if you see any pauses or, like hesitations, it's because we're kind of talking and mapping out. We already did the other hand, so we're just kind of trying to match it up and see like if we like the way that it looks, if everything. Some stickers had to be like in the opposite direction, so I was just checking with her to make sure that she was okay with that. But we're just adding these nice hibiscus, I think that's how you pronounce it, or hibiscus maybe. I think it's hibiscus flowers, that I got, like I said, off Amazon for super cheap, and they really, really match the vibe. Now, she completely picked all of her stickers, all of her water slides. She picked everything. She picked where she wanted them to go, how she wanted them. Like, this was completely her. So, if you guys are wondering why we put this here or why did we add this, etc., it was all what the client wanted, and I just, helped bring her vision to life. But this set was super fun, and as you can see, usually people look at sets and they think, wow, that had to have been hard to accomplish. And although sometimes it is a little bit of work, it's really, you'd be surprised. A lot of this stuff is more simple than it looks. As you can see, this right here is where we were kind of like matching it up to the other finger. And we're like, oh, wait, no, we're going to use this one instead. So, it's all a process. But as long as the client is happy, that's all that matters. As you can see, I'm just making sure to place them with my tweezers so it can be a little bit more accurate. And I'm definitely making sure to run my fingers across them to keep them nice and flat, y'all, because I had a horror story of when I first worked with stickers. Well, it wasn't when I, like, my first time, but it was when I was a beginner, and I just put the stickers on and, went about my way and put the top coat on, and they were on enough, but they weren't on enough, if that makes sense. So, like, they were tricking me. They looked like they were down, and I put the top coat on, and when they came back up, it was like, oh, Lord, what's going on? But yeah, so now we're just top coating them, and I'm using Coupa. And I got this off, and I was gonna say Instagram. Lord, y'all, this is embarrassing. I need to get my stuff together for these voiceovers. But I got this off of Amazon. I 100% recommend it. Love Coupa. I'm just doing obviously one coat of this. You want to make sure that you're covering everything. If anything doesn't look shiny or doesn't look like it's covered, please make sure that it is, because you don't want your clients' water slides or stickers peeling off or coming off. So I do cure this for 90 seconds, and this is the final result. And y'all, she would love these. I love these. These are definitely on my list of favorite nails for 2024 so far. They turned out perfect. They're so clean. The cuticle area is clean. Foundation is great. Everything is just amazing. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. Comment down below what you want to see for this year of 2024 and how you want me to continue my tutorials. Thank you for watching, and I love you guys. I'll see you on the next one.